fine.
Just a Billy in general.
But who did it? Cultural Heritage Foundation? Did they get permission from him?
Yeah, okay. No,
Do you ever what?
I mean,
These meetings
contacted
Jim Kowski trying to put together a meeting between me and Jason and him and Eddie. This is
I was gone, so I was like, what I
said
said
was,
and he dropped the letters that we had, which I was either before, and then I just had to go through them. And I was like, yeah, do some, I said, I have evidence on Thursday, and that's how they go.
Well, I need to be.
I can't go on vacation. It was kind of all week, I just like one thing after another.
She's never been my neighbor that I know of. I've never met her, I've never seen her. I hear from other people that she is, but I don't ever see her.
Is that not the house?
Yes, that's her house.
But you
Well,
To go back in school
no,
and my
never.
parents
Son,
have to
when
deal
I
with stuff
first
socially because they're still trying to
moved
get shit
in,
sorted.
or maybe the year after that, I'd seen lots. But they appeared to be on a timer, but they were on it at the same time. But she has a house over by you, and certainly.
Yes, but that's.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So much smarter. I told her that, I was like,
So
"They're
she,
here when I say
so she lives there.
tell me to wait.
Betty nice.
No, it's, but well, my grandmother is.
And Scott went there.
So we
He
always
lives,
drive.
in Lexington. No, Lexington, Virginia. In a senior place, yes.
You felt like you had, you know. Yeah, great, yeah, so mine was like great, yeah. And for that price, it'd be worth it, so she.
Good evening. Welcome to the, welcome to the July 10th regular work session meeting of Addington Town Council, and I will ask Ms. Cecile Rosenbaum, Town Clerk, to call the roll, please.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Ms. Patterson?
Here.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Humphries?
Here.
And Mayor Lo?
Here. Now, I'm going to ask council if they will let me deviate for 1 second. Number 3 on our agenda tonight is discussion regarding security measures for council meetings. And in order to keep this from being a rotating or revolving door, I would like to move that up to number 1, because this requires a closed session. And I'd like council to approve the change in the agenda.
What now you reading?
We need, Cecile said that number 3, because it's discussion of security, needs to be moved up to number 1. So a closed session would be easier if we go ahead and ask everybody to leave now, and then they can come in for the rest of the meeting, instead of back and forth, back and forth.
Could we do it at the end of the meeting instead?
We can.
Unless we don't have the time. Could run into it.
Let's just say that if we see that we are running out of time, we will intercept. Is that okay? Okay, so the discussion for the agreement with Avenue and Main Street, representatives from Avenue and Main Street Board are Lindsay Holderfield.
And I'm the staff liaison to the board.
Okay, and Amanda. So, and we got an email from Scott today that I looked through.
And Doug.
And Doug. That I looked through, so I'll go ahead and start this part of the discussion. The only reason I asked for this to come back on the agenda is because Mr. Kelly and I met with Jeff Sadler before the approval of the budget. And Jeff asked us to let the Virginia Main Street organization come down here and meet with all of the stakeholders, which was all of the businesses in the footprint, and see if he could have two or three town hall type meetings to get input to see, not if they wanted the organization to exist, but if they were willing to participate as board members. Because that has always been what they've identified and we've identified as the missing piece of the Main Street organization, is that the folks that we're trying to serve won't serve on a board or one of the 4-point committees. So that's the reason that we asked for this, is because when we left that meeting, we were under the impression that Jeff Sadler with Virginia Main Street was gonna come and meet with the merchants before we moved forward with any other plans for Main Street.
What was that meeting?
It was, I can tell you what it was the day of the flood.
I don't remember the exact day, but.
It's like May the 27th or something. It was, I could probably look on my phone, but anyway, so we had that put on because then, that got scrapped, and they didn't notify us of that. And so that got scrapped, and then the next thing we saw was an advertisement for a, employee.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we were just frankly concerned and confused that the whole plan had changed, and, we didn't understand the whole situation. Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, I'll just, and members of council, I'll just mention that I've had a follow-up conversation with Jeff Sadler, and he had asked to get copies of the agreement, which Main Street eventually agreed to, the terms that I had added to the agreement, and he also requested a copy of the funding will be released to them, and we went over that with Jeff, and with Scott when we talked to him last week.
Yeah, there was never a, God knows I'm not gonna try to get involved in another nonprofit organization. It's been enough trouble down at the incubator. But, we were just confused about what.
The meeting with Jeff, the original
It
one,
was
was it
May
just
the
the three of
24th.
you?
It was me, Jeff, and
Was anyone
Joy.
from our board
Joy.
there?
Joy.
Anyone from the Main Street board involved in that? Okay. So we weren't aware of that, or that it was,
somebody was aware of it, but they didn't come.
okay. All right.
But it was May the 24th, but
Okay.
anyway.
That's great, I just want to make a note of it. I don't, if you've read Scott's letter that he submitted since that time, there have been several new board members added. Michelle Goodman and myself, both of whom are Main Street business owners in the footprint of Abingdon Main Street, and both of whom are very committed to being active. I am taking on the Who's Afraid of Virginia Wolves project, because that has been sort of sitting stagnant since October. And I'm really excited about that. I was a little bit involved beforehand and already have good connections with all of the artists and a lot of the business owners who will be involved in that project. So it was really important to me personally to see that move ahead. I feel like it's a really great project for the town. I think it's great for the business owners. It's definitely good for the artists. So I'm excited about getting that going. We've hired project managers to manage Busker Fest as well as the beer gardens. essentially to keep things moving along and making progress in the absence of an executive director. So I feel like right now, from my perspective, and I'm new to this organization on purpose, because I'm not getting involved in anything that's not working. I don't have time either. From my perspective, coming in new, there's a lot of really good momentum in this group of people right now, and a lot of energy that I don't want to see wane. So I think being able to continue to move forward and take advantage of the new people who are getting involved and the old people who have stayed so dedicated, it's a really good time to let us keep moving ahead and build on some of this momentum and then get into a position where things are really different than they have been in the past.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
Is the funding in place for July?
And one of the benchmarks is to file reports with me and then do a quarterly report to the council. So at the end of the first quarter, assuming they got a new director in, that person or the president of their board or both would come before the council and inform you of an update in terms of the laundry list of things that Scott has set out that they're actively involved in. And you can make a determination at that time if you think it's moving in a successful direction or not.
So going back to the May 24th, what the Main Street are going to do to make sure that this will be a viable organization, have they, it sounds like to me they haven't completed what the face of it would do. He hasn't had the meeting with the merchants to see the buy-in, or has he?
Jeff hasn't been, Jeff was the one who was wanting to come and take a look at that. He has not been back yet, but has the plans to come back and do that.
Well, I think since we have a treasury policy that pays per quarter, you know, we can just monitor per quarter.
Do you know why that someone knew about the meeting and didn't attend?
No.
Is there any interest in anyone being a director at this time that you're aware of, Mr. Porter?
I know that they've advertised for it, and I've heard that there's a couple of people who've expressed an interest in the position.
There's some really good candidates, actually. We have some really impressive people I'm excited about. That you would be too, if I could tell you their names, but can't.
Yeah, I've had several call that, you know, talked to me about the organization, told me about their interest. So I know of 3 people that called me.
I think the whole process too has been really, the last 6 months have really helped us as a board hone and define the person, the type of person that we need for that job to be really successful. And it's a little bit different than what that's been in the past. And so I think that's gonna make a big difference too. And we've got some really good candidates who fit that sort of new job description.
In the surveys, I noticed where several people said they would rather not have town money. Are you all in a position of whether you could fund your director if the town didn't fund you?
Not next month, no.
Well, I mean, like we did the first quarter, then would you be after that?
Not right now, we're not, no. That would take some serious adjustment.
I think, if I could just speak as the the staff liaison, I was a board member for about 2 years before resigning, and then when Jane started, asked me to continue to serve as the ex officio member of the board representing the town of Abingdon Tourism Department specifically. I would say there's been a lot of discussion that I've been encouraged by within the board about improving communication. There's sort of 2 issues. One is performance-based measures, which I think the board is on board with and is very aware that needs to happen. And then 2 is the communication. I think that they would be very open and welcome to the very, understanding what the town council expects of them, but also they're very aware that they need to be more proactive about communicating with the council, because it sounds like this most recent issue is an issue of the council feeling blindsided in some ways.
And so that's the one thing I want to clear up, because again, I've had this same experience. I don't think the town council, once they allocate the money, I don't think we want to micromanage, but I do think that management wants to see the results that are in that performance agreement, and they don't want it to have to be a hassle, and so that, you know, we
Well, I
don't.
think we're in a weird catch-22 where the stakeholders want to see the same thing in order to get all the buy-in that we're talking about. I mean, we want to see results too, so that's part of the reason why I got on the board. And you try to do outreach to the other merchants and convince them that it's, we're trying to move a different way forward. You know, if they see results, then they buy in. And once they buy in, then it's easier for us not to take your money.
Well, and that, and the other thing I was looking at is, you know, there's a great diversification in your board, or there's some diversification in your board, and you have people who have things like Busker Fest and the Thursday Jams that people see value in, and you have others that see no value. And so, you know, that's something that, you know, that's gonna have to be reconciled somewhere along the line.
One thing that we have been discussing too is diversification of programming, so that that's what we have coming up right now, Busker Fest, Thursday Jams, the Wolves. But I think with a new executive director, diversifying programming so that we are meeting needs of all the different constituents, you know, or all the people who are involved in that Main Street footprint have a voice and can, you know, do some other things that may be tailored to them in a different way.
So when you, and this is something that confused me even in that survey, the Busker Fest, is that a Main Street initiative or is that the town of Abingdon?
So the way that went down is that but the first year of Busker Fest was right when Susan was leaving. And so it was always conceived of to eventually be a Main Street event. But the timing of it was such that somebody had to do it right then, and so Sarah Saavedra made it happen, and it's been a tourism generated event with assistance from Main Street. And please jump in and correct me if I say anything that's incorrect.
It is a partnership.
Right.
Being a government entity, there's a benefit to having that 501c3 nonprofit partner. So, but yeah, it's meant to be, from the tourism department's perspective, and Jane can jump in, the benefit is bringing people, you know, feet on the street, which our merchants are always asking for, people coming to town. The proceeds, and we don't net a profit, that's not our role as government, so the proceeds benefit Abingdon Main Street. But Lindsay's absolutely right. But Main Street was ideally gonna take more of a leadership role. That has not happened because of the staff turnover, but that would be the ideal.
The intention, and that is another reason that we've hired a project manager to work on sponsorship so that that burden doesn't fall on the tourism staff. So we felt like that was important, and that's our first step in taking on more of the responsibility for that event. You know, as we're able to generate more buy-in among ourselves, then we will have a higher volunteer base and we will have more capacity to take on more of that role, and so that's absolutely the intention.
Council? Well, thank you. Well, one other question. So Thursday Jam is a partnership also?
In that Abingdon Main Street handles the beer gardens because they're a nonprofit, so they're able to hold the ABC license.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But not with the.
Otherwise, that's a
Okay,
tourism
okay.
event,
Not
right?
So that's just the beer garden. But
Right,
the Busker
yeah.
Fest is a dual.
Yeah, Buster
Yeah.
Fest is more of a true partnership, yeah.
Since it's more specifically focused on getting people into our footprint.
And Busker Fest does a great job of incorporating the length of Main Street.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Consideration of proposed ordinance to authorize participation by the town of Abingdon, Virginia in the VACO VML Virginia Investment Pool for the purpose of investing in accordance with Code Virginia 1950 as amended, Section 2.2-4501 and Section 15.2-1300. Greg Kelly.
Yes, this is a program that we've been looking at for a couple of years actually, and just haven't gotten around to adopting the ordinance, but it is very similar to the VLGIP program that we currently participate in. This is our money that gets put into a pool with other localities from across the state and gets invested and has a fairly high return on investment, and it is highly guaranteed, has top rating in terms of your protection in the investment pool. Bo Blevins, who many of you know, is from Abingdon, and Bo is one of the individuals who is over this program. And it is much easier for us to access funds through this particular program than it is the VLGIP program, because that usually takes about a 3-day transaction period from when we have to request it until we actually get the money. This is an instant wire transfer, as I understand it, from them, and the intent of the use of this type of fund is when you have the lulls in your revenue throughout the year. So when you're not collecting real and personal property taxes or business license taxes, but you still have to make payroll on a regular basis, and all of our money is tied up in CDs except what we have in the LGIP or our general fund. This gives us the ability, or Chuck the ability, and Chuck's on vacation, by the way, which is why he's not here this evening, but gives him the ability to pick up the phone or shoot an email and say, we need $250,000 to be able to make payroll this month, or we need $250,000 to tide us over until business license fees come in. And it works exactly like VLGIP in the sense that we draw it down, we take care of our business, and then when the revenues come in, we put it back in the fund. So we would start with a relatively small amount and gradually build it over time. But it is one of those things that just gets you through the peaks and valleys of revenue, because when we adopted the budget on July 1st, all of that money doesn't just magically appear. Really? I wish it did. So it has to come in over a full year period of time. And this is just the first step in the process. We have to adopt the ordinance to be able to participate in it.
So what do you need from council tonight,
I need,
if they're interested?
I need a motion to adopt the ordinance.
No. This is just on here for information. We
Oh,
want to find out
we
if
don't
you all
have
are
this on the
interested.
regular agenda.
Then we'll,
That's right.
authorization to advertise
Yeah.
and get it on next month's agenda.
You're right.
So is this like a Chesapeake example or something like that? Chesapeake? Did you put it in?
Yes, because that's what it's just a boilerplate contract or ordinance that he had sent to us, so we'll fix all that stuff up.
I guess it's almost like a money market that you can write checks on.
Yeah, and ordinarily governments don't participate in the stock
Yeah,
markets
yeah.
because it's, high risk.
But the same
this
idea.
is guaranteed money.
Or interest-bearing checking account.
Yeah.
I think it actually arose out of the difficulty the localities were having with the LGIP funds that everybody's in. You can't get to them. It's extremely difficult, and sometimes you need the turnaround time that's quicker than 3 days. It's really hard, so this is a better way to go.
And we've had LGIP for the last 11 years, as long as I've been here, and I'm not sure how long Mickey had it set up before then, but the whole purpose was just to be able to draw down so you didn't have to cash in CDs.
So if council's okay with that, we'll go ahead and get it advertised and we'll have it for a public hearing for the August 7th meeting.
Do you need a motion upstairs for that?
I don't think.
No, just consensus of the council that you're comfortable with us advertising. Does everybody seem to be on board with
Yeah,
that?
sounds good.
I think it needs to be advertised or done when it's on.
Yes.
We would pass it on first.
So we're going to skip number 3. And we have discussion of live streaming of meetings for Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Review Board, and Board of Zoning Appeals. Cecile as well.
The reason I put this on here is Floyd and I were in a conversation earlier, I guess, or later the end of last week, about council's intention on these other meetings. And neither one of us was really sure if we understood what your intents were, if you all want to have all those meetings televised or live streamed while they're going on, if that's what
we just wanted to make sure that we knew what council's wishes were relative to having them all live streamed.
I think since we've got the equipment in place, we've heard.
But the one question I do have is, do we have how much it's gonna cost us to be able to do all these meetings?
Well,
Because we'll have to have staff, we'll have to have staff here.
it's a staff cost,
Staff
there's no
here.
doubt about it. Yeah, they have to be here every single time that we have a meeting, so, it definitely.
There's staff, and then there's storage. And the amount that we're saving. And there is the reality of a future issue with closed captioning. It is being discussed right now. One day, we're gonna have to close caption everything we put up, and it's gonna be expensive. So,
Now, one thing, BZA, and Jason can help me with this, BZA does not meet very often. They're having a meeting
Just
next
on the
week.
appeal.
This will be the first time they've had one for quite some time.
We had one, April.
Okay. But HPRB meets almost monthly, I believe, and Planning Commission obviously does as well, so. And if that's council's wish, then that's what Floyd and his staff will figure out a way to make it work.
Council?
I'd like to know the cost on it first. I'd like to know the cost on that, plus I'd like to know the cost on the closed captioning. Because if we go ahead and affect that too, you know, even though it's not required, why wouldn't we?
right, I know currently estimates are hovering around $1,000 per meeting. So it's very expensive. For that reason, most people are going back to just putting necessary meetings up and not, recording every meeting. We can always, and now here's another thing to keep in mind, we can always audio every meeting. And if we do an audio of every meeting, no closed captioning is required. It's just when you do video. So, yeah, ultimately, if we just do audio, we save ourselves, and we can audio record every meeting just as easily as we can video it and stream it. We can even audio and stream it without video. And that would be my recommendation for smaller meetings where, most of the time people are gonna introduce themselves. They like to see a picture in council meetings, I think, but if we could just kind of use a little caution when it comes to recording video every meeting. And if you wanted us to do an audio only for all other meetings, other than council meetings, like this one and the main, or any other council meeting, I would like to request that from a departmental standpoint. It'd be a lot easier on us, and expense-wise, it would go drastically down, and the requirement for the support for it, we wouldn't have to be here to audio record every meeting. We have the equipment in place to do that.
So so are you saying that like the meeting we're having right now would be $1,000 and then $1,000 again upstairs, so it's gonna be $2,000 for each?
For closed caption.
That's $2,000 you're looking at.
That's right.
Yeah, or $24,000 just for this.
And a lot of
That's
that's
why
predicated by the length of the meeting. So
Yeah.
meetings that are longer cost more to close caption.
Because I thought originally when we started this, that the video would it be better to just do audio down here? And
Yeah.
do both upstairs. That's what when we first started this, I had mentioned that I thought that would be the better way to do that.
And we can certainly do that. I mean, we have audio, we have video capabilities in this room, and we are live right now on the internet, video and audio. And we don't mind doing that whatsoever, and we'll do every meeting. That's perfectly fine. We are proud of our equipment, and it does a good job. But I do think for every other meeting in town, we either need to do them all or draw the line somewhere. And I think council is a good place to draw the line. Council meetings are audio and videoed. Every other meeting can be audio only.
Well, one of the things that's thinking about, I'm looking at here is actually, there's nothing that's actually decided here. So I see no value as much in having video here as I do at a planning commission or an HPRB, where that actually action will be taken, and that people will know what that action is. So I can see a value in that. That would be $3,000 a month, basically, or $36,000 a year versus doing whatever the whole thing would be. You have to add this one too. And but you know, I see a value in whether you actually take action.
Right. That makes sense.
Do you have any idea how many people watch the live stream?
Oh, I could get numbers. I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but I can say we're having somewhere in the neighborhood of, depends on the night, 5 to 20 watching remotely live. Then after that, the number of views greatly escalates in the hundreds. So people are watching the videos later. So,
There are 2 watching right now.
yeah.
And.
And they're watching, yeah. It'll go up when we go upstairs.
So you can, like, we've had 57 views, but that's the other thing is, once it's recorded and it goes to YouTube, it can be viewed from YouTube, right? But we have to store it just because of the freedom of information.
We have to keep it stored in order to possess it. Now, I know that the Library of Virginia will let us dispose of our video. We can't dispose of our paper though. So, you know, and that's under question now too. So there's a good possibility we're gonna be stuck keeping this stuff forever.
Madam Mayor.
Headed in that direction.
It's a lot of storage.
I was gonna ask another question.
No, I was just gonna say, I think there's a lot of questions out here, not just from, you know, I think all the council has some. There's some that Floyd can answer when he comes back, that we've already asked that he didn't have the answers to. And I think this probably would be a better work session, so that we can actually discuss it, and I think it's gonna tie a lot of time up trying to wade through this right now. But that doesn't preempt you from asking a question.
Go ahead, Cindy. I just wanted to ask, you're not gonna go back to the old video, I mean, the old audio, are you? You'll use this audio that we have now?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So is everybody okay with moving this to a mid-month work session?
Yes.
Anything else? Review of agenda items for the regular July the 10th meeting. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, I hope everyone's had the opportunity to take a look at the agenda for tonight. There are certain things on there that relate to Deb, who, as we all know, her brother passed away and she's not with us. But the first item that you will see there outside, once we get past public comments, deals with the public hearing. That public hearing is on the homestay ordinance, which council was provided at the last work session to review. And I believe at that time there were a few minor tweaks that were requested to be made, and all those have now been made and are in place. So this would be a public reading for the public to comment, and also first reading. And in light of what I think is the urgency of this, and we're given a 90-day grace period, I think that the council ought to give consideration to dispense with the second reading so that this could go ahead and take effect. There's still going to be a grace period of until is it October the 1st before people have to actually get their business licenses and everything turned into the town. Basically, inspections and numerous other requirements that are set forth in the ordinance, but it puts everybody on a level playing field who is renting out rooms to people within the town of Abingdon. This only came about because of recent legislation by the General Assembly, and it only happened this year. If the town adopts this, I think we will be the second locality in the state to have done it. I think Blacksburg was the first. And our ordinance has been mirrored after Blacksburg.
So, and I'm fine with the ordinance and the changes that were made last time, but, you know, sitting here tonight, stage A and stage B, I would hope that once this ordinance goes into effect, you'll have a training station for all the people, or a training session for all the folks that write business licenses, so that they can explain to the public what those two differences are. You know, we've been in some meetings that we know what that is, but you know, B is if you don't live in the home, you can't rent on Airbnb for more than 90 days out of the year, right? And so I think that people need to know that they have a choice whether they have a bed and breakfast, which is full-time, or bed and not breakfast, or whether they're Airbnb, Craigslist, Yelp kind of people, because there's two distinct differences in the licenses.
Not only licenses, but the zoning. You have, they have to be, depending on what zoning they're in, it might not be allowed in the zone that they would be located.
And also, we need to make sure we have proper advertising, which you all do anyway, but I just wanted to go over that, advertising in the paper, the website, and are we gonna send any letters out to the folks that are already on Airbnb that Deb's looked up?
They've already gone. The ones that we're aware of are already out there.
Already out there.
She reported that, I think, last month, that all those letters had been sent.
I heard that, but I'm not sure.
Some people have already been in and started the process
In
anticipation that this was going to happen.
Mr. Patel asked me if I would send him a copy of the ordinance. He wanted to take a look at it and see, if he thought it affected his business, so I think,
He came to me.
It won't affect his.
right.
He came to meet with us, and he might very well be here tonight at 7:30, but he applauded the council for being among the first to give this serious thought and move it forward.
I could actually see where that you have some of the places come up that are established and are doing well with their business, want to be a bed and breakfast, and be under that banner of bed and breakfast, is actually going to be probably a lot less restrictive for them. And I can see where it would be a great benefit to them to do that too.
I had somebody tell me that Airbnb collects all their taxes for them and sends it all in and all that, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think so.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And
I
Chuck,
can't
and
remember.
Chuck can tell you, he's never got a check from Airbnb.
Right.
Just to make it clear too, Ms. Rosamond, are we supposed to get our notice that we're in the bed and breakfast business also?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, do you have that paper with you?
I do not have it.
It's up upstairs, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
It's upstairs. You all have mentioned it before, so, and it's also in the minutes, that you were both, you and Mr. Humphries are bed and breakfast owners.
And we
I
also-
just wanna know, want the public to know that
I will note that in the minutes.
we can be fair about this, and,
Yeah,
or
it's
I
a
can be fair
group
about
of
this,
three.
speaking for myself.
And it's part of the group of three too, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's a public hearing, the public will have the right to comment beforehand, but again, my advice is to, which the code allows us to do, is to dispense with the second reading and go ahead and enact the thing tonight to get the grace period running, so that come October 1st, everybody will be online.
Okay. Back to the work session agenda. Updates on ongoing business. Consideration of amendment of bylaws for Tourism Advisory Committee. Jane Deering, Director of Tourism.
Good evening, everybody. For the past several months, a topic of discussion for the Tourism Advisory Commission is looking at their local committee membership and how that is comprised. And they have come up with a few changes, and we're proposing that we can continue with 15 members. We have changed the composition so that one representative from Heartwood, that has been released or let go. We did not have good participation from them. If somebody from Heartwood wanted to participate, they could either do so as a non-member or they could apply and be an at-large member. We also changed the restriction of having one representative from the Virginia Higher Education Center. We changed that to a higher education representative, so community college or the higher ed center, for example. Either one of those could represent them around the table. The other changes are around ex officio members. We did specify that ex officio are non-voting, non-debating members. And we proposed that two. One representative from Abingdon Town Council, and right now it's Mayor Kathy Lowe, and the alternative is Vice Mayor Rick Humphreys. And one representative from the Washington County Board of Supervisors. We all are part of the county, and it's good to have them represented as well. I had an informal conversation with both Phil McCall and Allison, who would be, and that would be restricted to an Abingdon supervisor. And either one of them said they would be happy to serve. We took out as ex officio a Chamber of Commerce representative. We moved those to regular member, and we moved from ex officio to a regular member, Abingdon Main Street or representative, because those two entities are stakeholders, and they should have a vote around the table. And in a nutshell, those are the changes.
And you know, I think we went through those bylaws and requested that tourism advisory hear it before we voted on it, but I think we had already all were in favor of the changes. So is there any other comment, question?
Does council need to appoint, I'm thinking out loud here, do they need to appoint Phil or Allison on the board of supervisors?
Yes.
So we could do that at the September meeting, I suppose.
Allison's
I don't
gonna-
know that we need to appoint them. I think they should probably appoint their own. They are the ones that requested to have somebody, and we just said it needed to be somebody that represents Abingdon. So I would think that they would decide between themselves which one would do that.
And Phil's preference was that Allison serve for now, and Allison said that would be fine with her.
Okay. We just need to,
But you don't have to make
You
a
got-
recommendation,
yeah,
council.
Okay?
yeah.
So
So we have
somebody-
to be able to keep a record of it in our, log of membership, of who's been appointed to the
So you need an
board.
application?
Yeah, we need an application, yeah.
So will somebody recommend Allison tonight?
Do we wanna wait till we hear from them first, or do we wanna?
We've heard from
You've
them.
heard, okay. Then that's fine.
Okay.
That'll be on matters on the agenda, because I don't have it on the agenda.
It is on the regular agenda for tonight.
Yeah, the bylaws are,
Oh.
but the appointment isn't.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, so, discussion regarding rules for allowing dogs at the Avenue Market Pavilion property. Actually, that number, well, as we know, Deb is out. And Deb, if you're watching, we have you in our hearts. But I think that what this really is supposed to say is not necessarily Avenue Market Pavilion property, but all town-owned properties. However, I know why it's listed that way, because the one thing that the staff wanted to do was to have a meeting with the farmers market group to find out what's in their rules before they started making any changes or recommendations.
Has that happened?
No.
No.
Okay. And we will skip over update on any town ordinances, and unless there's something in these updates that someone from council would like to see in a work session. I'd like to get this tourism zone over myself. Council, do you have any of these update on town ordinances that you'd like to see on a work session? Okay.
Do
I know.
there's some signs on the agenda.
A deafening silence.
I know, so,
Yeah, really.
so do you want the tourism zone on the agenda or not for a work session?
It would not hurt me to see the tourism zone on a work session. we've kind of batted this around a little bit. We haven't made a lot of headway on it, I think.
Well, we've asked for Chuck to get us some financial information, and I don't think
He's
he's.
already got that.
We did?
Yeah, Kevin told him last Thanksgiving, and I'm almost positive you got it, because they did the projections. They talked about money.
I saw the.
Remember they talked about how
They
it would
did.
be, you know, it would take so long to get to this point, and 5 years would be the payoff, and if I'm remembering, am I losing my mind?
Yeah, you're right.
It's
But I
probably
thought
already
it was-
gone.
Well,
but,
yeah,
you know.
yes, but we do remember that.
Yes, but confirm it, yes. I just need you to confirm it.
I think one of the things that we were looking at is defining what was considered the downtown area.
Right.
Yeah.
Is one of the
Okay, I knew there was something we had to consider for that
Yeah.
incentive.
Are you trying to kill Jane in her first 6 months as director of tourism?
We can leave that alone if you want to, I mean, I don't care, but I, you know.
Jane's you should say they should leave.
Well, either we take it up or
You
it's
know,
gonna die.
it might-
Well,
It's
we've
it's
already
something
invested.
that we ought to consider as we work through the comprehensive plan revision.
It's something that we've already invested in time and everything else. So we need to continue on with it.
So yes, on a work session,
Yeah, and we can
on
try
an
to
upcoming
target,
work session.
we can try to target the footprint issue, I think, because that's one of the biggest issues where all of it gonna.
It is the biggest issue.
Yeah,
It is the biggest
footprint's
issue.
biggest issue, so.
Okay. Update on RFP for ground penetrating radar at the Meadows. Greg Kelly.
Yes, Mr. Craig had asked me about this and came to see me the other day, in fact, about it, and I believe Cindy had asked that it also be on the upcoming agenda.
Excuse me, Greg, could you speak up on a little bit?
I'm sorry.
Move up here. Move on this front
That
seat.
won't help.
I said that council member Craig and Ms. Patterson had asked that I give an update on this. Our last updated council on this in April, at the April council meeting. At that point in time, we had had 2 lengthy teleconferences with the Corps of Civil Engineers and with DEQ, and we were told that we should not proceed with any further archaeological study until DHR had reviewed the revisions that SM&E had made at that point in time. So we worked up an RFP. The RFP is worked up. It has not been sent out. And we expect within the next 2 weeks, probably, we're going to get the decision from the Corps of Civil Engineers on whether or not DHR is satisfied with the archaeological study of SM&E. I contacted one firm. There are others, of course, out there, but at the request of Mr. Craig, I did contact one firm, and I will not mention it by name because if we do wind up in an RFP, I don't want to poison the well. But the individual was very helpful in telling me what the process was. It is basically at a cost of $4,500 per acre, plus we have to pay the cost of the equipment. They do not have the equipment the size for a tract of property this size. They also talked about donor dogs at $1,500 a day for a donor dog. If you do the math on that, you can see that that is a substantial amount of money for a study like that. And granted, that is just one company that I have made contact with. Now, is there the possibility of doing just a limited review of part of the property? I would imagine that there is. But my thoughts have been with what Claire Trent and the folks at DEQ have told me is that the SM&E folks went back in and did everything according to the DHR manual, and if that satisfies everything, I don't think we should proceed any further with this. If it finds something, or if DHR requires something different, then council may want to consider it at that point in time, but you're talking over $200,000 to do the entire property.
That didn't include the equipment, I don't know what's
He-
involved
he-
there.
You know, well, he didn't give
Kind
me,
of equipment.
he didn't give me a price on the equipment. The cadaver dogs were $1,500 a day, of course. They wouldn't have to be out there nearly as long as the radar equipment would be.
When we mentioned this, I brought this up, and Mr. Kelly said it did not require anything at that time. But we were talking about the DHR and what, what that they look at, and what, they're kind of the gold standard that we all go by. That's what everybody in the state goes by. So if they tell you there's not enough done, just like they did at SM&E, then they had to go back out and do more. And so that being said, that's why that I mentioned before, that I think that we should follow what the DHR would request us to do, rather than doing over and above something that we spend $250,000 on something that DHR, which is the group that we get money from and derive money from and derive expertise from, would not require that.
Greg, you talk to the same people that I talked to. What he suggested to me that we might do is, which you said a limited survey. Kathy could speak to that. I'm not an expert on this at all, but from what people tell me, you can go out and see if there's potential. The people that study this, and I don't know, did he indicate to you that he gave me the impression that he could, just by visibly looking, give you some idea whether there was anything there or not. Do you know?
I didn't ask him that specifically, and he didn't mention that to me. He did mention that, he could do a limited space, but we would have to tell him where to do that.
Kathy's here. Do you have experience in that? Could you?
There are people at the Historical Society who have been able to go on property and see by the contours if there are sunken spaces especially. My concern, and I'm not the expert here, but my concern would be that the initial company that was hired missed, the fact that this was a large slaveholder. This farm had a lot of slaves, the most slaves in the county, and there was absolutely nothing mentioned in the initial report. You're saying they came back?
They have
did
come back
another
and they've
study?
done the entire property.
But so then, do you have the report they made from their second visit?
I do not.
I would really like to see that.
Kathy, I've got a copy, I'll send
Do
it.
you? Okay, I'd like to see that, because they totally ignored that in their first survey. That I assume they were well paid for, and that it was clear they'd read the report, they'd read the census data indicating that these slaves were there, and historically they're buried on the property. So we would assume that those burials are somewhere. I don't know anything about the sonar, the radar, or whatever. Rick knows a lot more about that process than I would. But it seems to me, maybe they made a good effort when they came back to find this.
They had to do what, they had to do the new specs through that DHR required. They had to go through and do DHR required.
Yeah, and I don't know what they
specs.
require. If they take the history, I would assume they take the history into account. That's very good.
Well, I know in dealing with DHR many, a few times before, how rigorous they are in what that they require. And knowing and doing federal and state tax credits from them, that, even down to what is taken off of a building or what surrounds a building or what is potentially there, all has to be taken into account. And they're very, very, very rigorous in vetting,
They're certainly rigorous in terms of buildings, yes. But if you have the report, it seems like everybody on council should have a copy of the report.
I can
Yeah.
certainly
If it's
I can send it to
available.
everybody. I just
Yeah.
picked, it came in the section 106 review. But I can forward it to.
Yeah, and I believe you were a consulting party, if I
Correct,
recall.
correct.
So
I can send you a copy. It did state in there, again, that they actually stated that they did not survey around any of the buildings because that land was gonna be protected anyway. So, again, it's another question, but I will send you a copy.
Steve, did you have something to give?
Yeah, I've glanced through the report quickly. They, as I remember, indicated they did not find any, dips in the ground where there might be graves, but it is the case too that often they're not visible to the naked eye. And it's the ground penetrating radar that can detect those things that are not visible to the naked eye. There's also the LIDAR, which is a flyover with laser things that's even better at that. But they may not require it, but I think it can be limited where possibilities exist on that property, and you wouldn't have to do the whole thing.
Because it was 3,000 acres to begin with.
Yeah, it could, of course,
A
the
lot
cemetery could have been
property.
totally off what's there now, but we don't know until we do.
I have a question. Do you have anything else, Mr.
No.
Jones? Mr. Craig? Who paid for the first survey?
SM&E, that's
Marathon Realty. Who also paid for the second survey?
Marathon.
Marathon, okay. Could we find another company perhaps that would have the equipment and they wouldn't have to buy it or purchase it, or we'd have to rent it? I'm not
Well,
clear on that.
you would have to go out for an RFP, but the one thing that I have indicated is that right now, get all my acronyms mixed up, the Corps and DEQ have told us not to do any other surveying of the property until they review the current reports.
Okay, and who was the person on the Army Corps of Engineers?
That's Claire Trent.
Ms. Trent, okay. And I would like to have a copy of that survey. Do you have a
I
copy?
do not have a copy.
Okay, could you get that for me, Mr. Levine?
I'm sorry, what?
A copy of the survey, the second survey.
I do have a copy.
Okay, if you could get that to me. Does
Sure.
anybody else on the council want?
I don't have one, I like that.
Would y'all like to
I'll
see
send
it?
it,
If he
if I
sends
send
it,
it to you,
I'll get it.
you can give it to all the members, okay?
Yeah. Is it electronic?
It's electronic. It's a big file, it's electronic, but, I'm pretty, by itself, that file can be sent, it's a PDF, I'll send it.
I still have one question about, if this is gonna cost so much money, again, we go back to the other work session that we were in, or I'll go back to it. What would it hurt for Ms. Shearer to conduct with her group a study over there, just walking along the property to see if they think they can find something before a $200,000 figure comes up and we have to pay that? I just don't, what do you think about that?
Would that be certified by DHR? If it
Well-
would be certified by DHR, I could see that.
Well, does DHR have they ever produced any kind of evidence like this back in the background, years ago? And right now, we still use divining rods sometimes to find water and electric lines for Appalachian Power, so, it's not uncommon for them to do these things.
No, I mean, but that wasn't my question. My question was, would DHR certify that? And, what we do is we have those organizations that say you can or can't do things, that this is right, or they'll accept this or not accept this.
Well, Rick, the way I see this is it doesn't need to be certified by DHR. I mean, the town council can do whatever it chooses. We've got some citizens that are concerned about it, and I suggest that as soon as we're able to get on the property, express their concerns, and if they have.
Okay, let's say they don't find anything. Will that satisfy you? Or are you gonna say, let's pay the $250,000 and go through Grand Prix?
It'll satisfy.
I mean, where does it stop?
If it's Kathy's route.
Well, where does it stop? I guess what I want to know is where does it stop?
I'm concerned
But,
about
we're, looking at this, my thought is that the authority on this would be DHR in the state. It's just like as we look at the DEQ, are we gonna question DEQ about all the stuff that they're saying is good and not good? Or Corps of Engineers, do we say, well, the water report's not good and we go and get another water report? So where does it actually start and stop?
As far as I'm concerned, if Kathy's group goes out there and doesn't see any need to do anything any further, then as far as I'm concerned, I'll be satisfied.
Okay, so let's say they go out there and they find something. and then we go in there and we spend $500,000.
Well, we could
Or
send out-
let's just say we spend $100,000, then who's liable, and they find nothing, then who's liable for that $100,000 that we spent of taxpayers' money that we shouldn't have spent?
Well, that goes for almost anything we do.
That's why.
There's no liability.
That's right, but the idea is that there is a liability, and that's on the town, and because they're gonna spend the extra money. That's why that I hang my hat with DHR, which is a scientific organization that in a scholarly and academic organization, that we hang our hat on everything else for when it comes to the history.
Well, here's my point. We got the air survey coming up next, but anyway, some people have told me, and I've read, that the air close to the interstate could have diesel fuels in it. There's all kinds of horror stories about people that have lived there and all that. Well, if you accepted the DEQ's report and to go ahead and put the kids out there to play ball, you gonna hang your hat on that, and you gonna explain to citizens that, hey, my kid's got bronchitis, asthma, or whatever, and not do our due diligence for our citizens. That's my point.
I think what you're saying is exactly right. We do hang our hat with DEQ. They're the quality and they're the organization that's supposed to protect us. That's what they're there for. So I expect them to
But
protect
the
us.
DEQ survey doesn't give you the site-specific information. I don't think, Greg was gonna find that out, that you would need to determine whether there's danger for our children next to the interstate.
Well, when you were the survey that you were looking at, that was talking about the thousands, tens of thousands of cars a day and on the freeway. It didn't list interstate, it was freeway. It was the study that you alluded to before, where they had the particulate matter and things that was in the air. That was a freeway, which has 8-10 lanes in it. It wasn't an interstate. So as you look at that, our interstate is not as well traveled as a freeway, like in California.
There's, Rick, there is over 60% of the traffic on that interstate are diesel trucks. I-81 is the most heavily traveled truck highway anywhere around. There's probably a lot of freeways that don't have that many trucks. In fact, I don't know if you know it or not, but they were gonna build the highway and fund it by putting tolls on trucks, widen I-81. So it depends on what the diesel fuel fumes is what I read is the really harmful stuff. So I think we have a responsibility to our citizens to address their concerns.
So who would be the gold standard?
What?
Who would be the gold standard to do that?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if we hire an independent consultant, they go out there and test the air next to the interstate and give us that additional information, I'd be satisfied.
Okay, so most of the experts that Greg Kelly contacted, which were a whole bunch of them, said, well, we would rely on the first thing is the DEQ study because they're the gold standard. Am I right, Mr. Kelly?
A few of them most of them did not respond because the closest I could find people were from the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. But it was stated to me by a firm out of, actually I asked the question of CHA, the firm that's doing the work for us, how to go about getting this, and they indicated that it would be something that they would go and get the report from DEQ and base their data on. I asked Ani necessary that, and that to follow up, since we're in this topic, I've been told, at least preliminarily, that there's going to have to be some archaeological work done by VDOT because there's federal money involved in the Exit 17 project. And there may also have to be air quality updates. Now, this is not, you asked the question, Wayne, is this site specific to the Meadows or any other piece of property? No, it is site specific to Bristol and Washington County.
Okay. Maybe we could get an expert here. I don't know what I'm talking about. All I know is what I read on the internet and what the citizens have indicated. Can we get somebody here to talk with us about that?
I don't know. The closest I can find are people.
I'm talking about DEQ.
DEQ, I'll be happy to try to, if that's.
Could we just come to a work session or something?
That's the consensus of the council.
Well, I do think that the state agencies are who we relied on and who, I mean, we mirror everything that the town of Abingdon does through state legislation. So, you know, if you wanna hear from state agencies, I'm fine with that.
Here's what I want, Kathy. I want to be assured, not assured, but I want to be reasonably sure that the citizens' concerns are, we address them somehow. And I would be satisfied if DEQ comes in here and tells us we don't need any more air quality data for the sports fields, then I think I'd be satisfied with that. But I don't know.
By citizens, tell me, are we talking about 1 citizen, 100 citizens, 500 citizens, 7,000 citizens? I guess because what I'm looking at, what I'm looking at is I'm going to do what's the best for the entire town and all the citizens in town. And that's all the citizens, not any particular one group, but all the citizens in town. So if what you're trying to do is throw roadblocks up rather than actual information that the DEQ and DHR have, then that really gives me cause for concern.
Well, Rick, I'm a council member and I've got some judgment, and I know that diesel fuels are severely toxic. I've also read on the internet that people that live near the interstate, they get cancer. So I'd like for somebody that's got some knowledge about it to come in and tell us what data we got, and is it accurate to judge what right next to the interstate.
Well, and I understand your concern. So before you bought your house, you had it checked out, you had that already checked out? That you were worried about because you're so close to the
I had no idea that I was in any danger, and I don't think I am, because my house is further away than the.
Well, with the diesel trucks all go by, I mean, not all the diesel trucks get off at 8, and they come up and down 81 Wayne, and no matter how,
I'd like to hear DEQ say that their data is.
That's fine. DEQ is fine. DEQ is fine.
I just want us to be, when a citizen asks me something, I want to be sure I'm giving them a decent answer. So they say next to the interstate is dangerous. I can tell you that I don't think I'm in danger where I live, but, if somebody's playing ball right next to the interstate, I'm listening to them.
I understand. Yeah, so I'm, but I'm also trying to look at the practicality of, we have all the people in Winterham, all the people that are in your neighborhood in Glen Roque, all the people at the country club, all those people where that you have winds blowing, you have the climate, and of course, you saw when the tornadoes came, that Jude grew right up the alley, it was right over in Country Club.
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert.
And I've said this before, but go ahead.
What is near the interstate? I don't, when they did these studies, I don't know.
It was just this last year, wasn't it?
It's through December of 2015.
So they might have an update, so do you check if we have an update on it too?
We will.
And I will say area specific that there is, and I mentioned this before, a downdraft there, Mr. Humphreys. When you come down to exit going south and you go to the exit 17, and brake dust is also a particulate matter. And the tires and all the little particles and everything like that goes and floats through the air. There's a downdraft there. I'm sure Mr. Howard knows what downdrafts are and all that. Anyway, there's a downdraft there. The air is carried across that pasture. And that's what Mr. Humphrey, or Mr. Craig is talking about.
Yeah, and I'm not a climatologist, and I'm not sure that I agree with that.
We could get one in if you want.
A climatologist?
Yeah.
Well, it would be good if somebody talked about, probably over the last 20 years to make sure how it's changed, what it is. That's a lot of data that someone's had to collect over time. But you're also looking at the way the creeper trail is shaped, that just as well as it goes down toward, because it's even lower as you go down toward Watauga, I would think.
And there's a lot of trees in that area though, and the trees help keep, they're like a filter.
Which maybe that means you just put more trees over on that side than
Well,
you
it'll
think
take
is
a
a
while for them to grow up, but I agree, yeah. If it comes in, I'd say.
Rick, what's wrong with having DEQ, man?
Oh, no, I agree with DEQ. I agree with DEQ. You're not, that's fine to bring DEQ in.
I can't decide, I don't wanna spend the money if we don't need to.
Let's just go with this,
Yeah,
this
the
idea
DEQ,
right now.
the DEQ's fine.
Go with the DEQ idea right now.
The DEQ's fine, and the DHR's fine with me too.
Yeah. Both
Both of them, I'm fine with both of them.
Okay.
And actually, to add to that, probably the VDOT representative, because when they do the Exit 17 update, they may or may not have to do a study. So, you know, it wouldn't be bad to have VDOT here also.
I'm not saying we should do anything particular. I agree with Greg. We probably shouldn't send out an RFP until we can get on the property or have a reasonable assurance we're gonna get on the property sometime soon. And maybe if we could, get DEQ or somebody else to go out there and take a look when they can, and, you know, see if they see any evidence of graves or we get, DEQ says that there's no danger or no reasonable danger of placing salt. I'm not in favor of spending money that we don't need.
And while we're at it, I'd be in favor of that as well, but I'd also be in favor of Ms. Shearer's group to go with them.
Well, you know, I think Kathy mentioned just a minute ago that she wasn't academically prepared for that. Were you, or are you?
I don't know the technology that you're speaking of, however,
I
you know,
heard her
we
say
have.
that she has the people in her.
Yeah, the Historical Society has a cemetery committee, and in fact, Johnson Memorial asked us to come on their property to locate graves in a small family cemetery, which they had acquired. They acquired the land, and there were unmarked graves there, and the family was very concerned that all of this would disappear, and our committee, they were able to locate the graves to their satisfaction, mark them, and JMH kindly put a fence around it and has protected it. You know, we would be glad at no charge to accompany anyone and invite council members to come with us. I mean, we're not trying to plant evidence or,
No.
you know, that has been suggested. So, no, we're just, you know, we're available, we've done this in the county and various places, and I'm not the expert on the committee, but the fellow who does it is really good at this. So, we're available, the price is right, you know, and you all are welcome to come with us. We would not, you know, try to do something that was dishonest. So, you know, there you go.
One thing we need to determine tonight, because this permit is going to probably be issued in the next couple of weeks, if it is issued. They may say it's not going to be permitted, I don't know. But if the permit from the Corps of Civil Engineers is granted, everything is ready to move on this project unless you all are asking that additional requirements be made. And that's where I need the direction from the council, is if DHR, the Corps of Civil Engineers, DEQ, if they all say it's good to go with the permit, I need direction from the council, because I will have permit applications in here the next day.
Yeah, I'm not.
I could see no reason to add additional requirements. I can see no reason to add additional requirements.
I think we should, if you can get permission from SME to get on the property, we can get permission from the Corps. And I'd like for Ms. Shearer's group to go out there as soon as possible. And if she's, if she finds nothing, then, I mean, there's no, if Corps issues a permit, we can't really keep them off. We've got an agreement that says that we gotta let them proceed. We gotta let the development proceed. So they'll have to feel, and I regret that, but at least we could make some effort to.
I can't see superseding DHR.
What?
I cannot see superseding DHR.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I cannot see superseding DHR.
How does it supersede DHR?
Well, DHR will determine exactly whether or not that they think there's a site or site-specific or things that are out there that need to be.
Well, if they wanna come down here and do that, then that's fine.
Well, then you could ask that, but I don't see
Oh,
putting it,
okay.
but I don't see any
I
putting
can
any.
ask anything I want to.
Right, I don't see putting any further restrictions on what we have. We've got the gold standard, we've got the things.
You and I just disagree.
Well, it is, but you know, here it is. You know, we use the same standard on everything we do, from whether it's road building, whether it's doing, trying to get the exit 17 fixed. We use these agencies, and we rely on them to give us good, honest, and factual information. Is that not true?
Well, let me just.
So wait a minute, I'm just asking a question.
Is there minimum requirements? No. If I'm gonna design a treatment plant for you, plenty of times the client, I tell them what the DHR requires, or the DEQ requires, and if they wanna do more, then that's fine.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying.
But before you can even do that, DEQ has to sign off on it. It has to be that, you have to have that standard, right?
No, he signs off all at one time, but anyway.
Right.
Yeah, they have to sign off on it, no question about that, but that doesn't mean that that's what that's the minimum that you can do. People all the time do more. I mean, that's not unusual. If the citizens are saying, hey, I'm not satisfied with this, and if I can't tell them, or we can't tell them that there's not a danger there, then.
Is that one citizen? Is that 100 citizens? Is that 500 citizens? Is that
Well,
7,000 citizens? That's what I'm saying. Well, if you're hanging your hat on one citizen, Wayne, what I guess I'm looking at is you're not pandering to one group, that you're looking at the citizen as a whole.
I can use my common sense that if somebody has a concern, that I need to address it unless I'm sure that, or reasonably sure, that it's not valid. I don't care if it's 1 or 10 or whatever. I mean, we're here to represent the people.
No, we're here to represent all people.
Rick, wouldn't it benefit all the people if they found something?
Would it benefit all the people that found
Yeah,
something?
wouldn't it benefit everybody? I think the majority of people here don't want to cover up any graves. The majority of people I talk to, they don't want their kids playing in dirty air.
And I think that DHR is what that is done, and I think that's what DHR
Well, that's your opinion, that's not mine.
Okay. Well, I didn't know you, I thought that I guess I thought that your firm all this long, the Mattern and Craig, had for years and years gone by what the highway department and VDOT had asked you to do?
We do.
Okay, well then there you go, that's what I'm wanting to. DHR, DEQ.
If you want to go with the minimum requirements, I mean, the council needs to decide that. All I'm doing is expressing my opinion. I'm saying that I don't know, and I did do a little bit of research on my computer, and I'm of the opinion we at least ought to see if the concerns I'm concerned about, frankly, are valid or not, because I don't know if the data that they're giving us is specific enough. I mean,
well, as we said, the DEQ, we can get the DEQ down here, we can get
Yeah,
DHR
that's
down,
right,
we can get DHR down there, whatever we need to get out of here.
But
there's
them
no.
go out on the
They
side,
can go
what's
out
wrong with
too,
that?
what's wrong with that?
If they go up to DHR, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
I think we got
As
two
well.
questions, so let me stop for just a minute. Mr. Kelly, I think, is asking about the permits for Marathon, but you're saying that the dirt would be dumped on the town's property if Marathon got the permit. Is that correct? And so that's the question here, is do we want to delay letting them dump dirt on the sports complex proposed property? Is that the question?
The question is, you've authorized an RFP. You never authorized, by the way, an RFP on the air quality. You just asked for cost estimates on air quality report, which nobody can give any cost estimates.
Greg, let me interrupt you just a second. I think that the way I see it, we've got an agreement with Marathon Realty. When the Corps issues that permit, they can get grading, and we've already agreed they can dump it on that property, right? That question's answered. We can't stop them. So.
Well, that's what I really need, Wayne, though, is for the council, and probably tonight, some type of motion to that effect. That if the Corps issues the permit, then there is no need in proceeding further with an RFP on the ground penetrating radar, and for all intents and purposes, the project can move forward.
Well, that's fine, but we've got to let it move forward. But would it make some sense to at least let somebody go out there and look? If they've got a concern, we might get Marathon to dump the dirt on a part that's not of an area of concern to anybody. I mean, we could do that. Surely they would cooperate with us that way.
Well, our agreement with Marathon is that we provided them with, they provided us with the land. We provided them with the ability to dump the
That's
dirt
right.
on the land.
That's right.
We need their dirt to be able to build the road, so they're gonna probably, I don't know, Matt may know better about this, or you even, if they're gonna dump on the road section first, or if they're gonna dump on the.
Would it make sense to at least see if there's, if anybody thinks there's a problem out there before we just let them dump? I mean, I'm surely Marathon might stay away from an area of concern until we could get some radar there if we need to.
And I will say this, we asked for this months ago, and we asked if Ms. Shearer's group could come in and do this months ago with no cost to the town, and we did do that. And now we're getting, oh, I'm sorry, you know, we really can't do that now, and that's just not, that's not good.
Well, so my question is, so both of y'all have not seen the new report from SM&E?
No.
No.
So they might, so if SM&E says there's nothing on there, you're saying you don't believe them?
No, I didn't say I didn't
Let us
believe
look
it.
at the report. If we let us look at the report, we'll determine.
I mean, you're saying I'm saying I don't know if there is or not, but y'all saying, well.
I haven't
Don't
read the
put words in
report.
our mouth, please, Mr. Humphries. Just let us see the report and then we'll go from there.
I couldn't squeeze a word in your mouth if I wanted to, so, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, we got two different issues. The air quality, we can get somebody from DEQ, would agree on that?
Yep.
Okay. When do they anticipate the permit being issued? 4 weeks. Couple weeks. Is it possible, you think, we could get somebody from DHR to at least look at it? Let her group go out first.
DHR's reviewing it right now. They're the one that have to sign off.
I mean, look at the site.
Well, that's what they're looking at.
DHR is looking at the site, you agree?
They're reviewing SM&E's.
I'm talking about physically the ground.
I don't know the process of that part of it.
Okay. Well, I think we ought to at least see if Kathy's group has any concerns. And since we don't know, I don't know what I'm talking about, to tell you the truth. It just makes sense to me, if a citizen's got a concern, they could at least go out on the property and take a look and report to us. And then, if we got a concern after that, we could at least ask Marathon Realty to put their dirt somewhere other than the area of concern if we need to investigate it further. I don't think that'd be a problem.
Wait, could I make a comment from the peanut gallery?
Sure.
There's a truck and a tractor and some equipment on the meadows. I think everybody probably knows about that. And Jennifer Fry from the Army Corps, who's Claire Trent's boss, said that there was no problem, you know, to go, you know, so it's not a matter of disturbing a blade of grass. You know, as far as someone going on the property and just walking around, I would think that Ms. Shearer's group, they let a bulldozer on there, a dump truck, so.
We've already gotten permission from a court for S&M to get on the property, obviously, so people can go on the property. All you gotta do is call them and ask them.
Here's
Is that
the,
okay with, so that's okay with you? They said it's okay with you for them to come on? I mean, you just
Greg
got
told me
this-
that you got permission for S&M to go on.
well, they had to,
somebody.
But they had to.
They were
They were just-
required to do it, Marathon was required to do a more extensive study.
Could we at
We're
least
gonna leave this in
call
the council discussion, I'm sorry.
And find out if it's okay for somebody to go on the property, I mean, it's just a phone call.
Okay,
I understand.
so let's, wait just a minute, I'm gonna let Mr. Levine say one thing, and then we're gonna get back to this, we need a closed session. Mr. Levine had his hand raised, so I'm gonna let him say something.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what Nan said, actually, the letter from Jennifer Fry said any property owner has the right to utilize and maintain their property. There's no restriction during the section 106 review that stops a property owner from doing things as long as they're not grading the land. That's what the letter said. So just to clarify, you don't have to get permission to go on. You have the permission, it's
your
an
right.
inherent right. And so, just so that everybody knows that while you discuss it.
Thank you. So here's the deal. Ms. Patterson has left. Please make a note that we have 4 council members right now. Ms. Patterson is gone. we have a question from Mr. Kelly on, you know, it's kind of an if, I think. It's if before the next council meeting, Marathon applies for the permits, do we allow the town staff to write those permits and get started? That's the question, right?
That is, in a nutshell, that's the question. The real underlying issue is council in the past has made a request for an RFP for ground penetrating radar. My question specifically is if the Corps grants the permit based on the DHR standards, does the council wish to rescind that request, or do they wish to proceed with that request?
I'll make a motion upstairs to rescind.
And that's the gist of it. And then I'll try to get the air quality people to come to the council meeting at the next work session and talk about air quality.
And I had tried to make that motion before, and we talked about the DHR gold standard and how that we went by what their rules, what they set up. And we couldn't do anything that they didn't say we could do. And, well, we can't, we couldn't go in there and tear the house down if we wanted to.
Oh, you're talking about historic property.
I said DHR, Department of Historic Resources.
I don't know what all DHR does, Rick. I know they do houses, but I don't know whether they know anything about graves.
They do cemeteries, they have, I don't know how many cemeteries, they have a lot of stuff, Wayne, and I'm not trying to be argumentative with you. What I'm saying is that I had mentioned once before that we needed to go by what DHR thought would be the best way to do it. And so, and at that time I asked Greg, do we need a motion on that? And Greg goes, no, we need to get closer to the time, and apparently this is the time.
Rick, the man that told me that, and this is all I know, told me that you could go out on the site, experienced people could go out on the site and look and see if there's an area of concern. This has nothing to do with DHR. I don't know. You know, I really don't. And I'm not trying to be, you know, I'm not want to spend any money that we don't have to. But at the same time, if a city, we've got to listen to our citizens. And we should at least let them go out on the property and look at it. I mean, that's not unreasonable.
Let's just ask the question, if it's okay for them to go.
Well,
If it is, let's go.
But I see putting no further encumbrance on issuing permits. I mean, they've jumped through all the hoops, why would we want to do it?
We've got an agreement with the marathon.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's not an issue. We've got to let them dump dirt when they want to. That's a contract. Is that not right, Greg? So that's not an issue. All it is can somebody go out on the property and look at it and tell us what they think? That's all.
Okay, so we're gonna have a motion upstairs about the RFP, and that will answer Mr. Kelly's question.
The matter's not on the agenda because it's not on the agenda.
Yes, and so we are going to have VDOT and DEQ come to the next council meeting and talk about.
Let's do it at a work session,
Yeah.
whatever the quickest thing we can.
Yeah, if they can be here in the mid-month work session, let's go ahead and do it.
What's the date we can have?
I started to say this is kind of mid-month, so let's look at our calendar.
Let me say this, Bob and Wayne are on the committee with Janet sitting back there to meet with the VDOT folks this Wednesday morning. We could ask that question of VDOT this Wednesday.
Okay.
And then report it back out to the rest of the
That's
council.
fine with me.
Okay.
Can that group go on the property or not? I mean, is there any problem with that?
From what Greg's told us that there is.
So we need to,
Well, then we
I
have two
think we're gonna have
conflicting issues.
to, I think we're gonna have to stop the meeting. Ms. Patterson has left the meeting. She is upstairs interviewing with WCYB. We probably need to go upstairs, and I'd like to recess to upstairs and see if there's any questions that the rest of the council needs to answer.
Okay.
Need a motion.
I need a motion for a recess.
I move a recess.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.